Today's going to be a bit of a shorter, mellower one. Hiya. The recent Titan tragedy has spurred up a lot of sensationalisation around not just the vessel itself, but also the ship it was voyaging to see, the Titanic. I'm not here to discuss the people involved and all that sort of thing. That is not for me to speak on. But I'd like to offer a sort of archaeological perspective, if you will, by looking at the Titan and the Titanic in the wider context of underwater archaeology, underwater tourism, and conservation of such sites, if you don't mind. Also, I think as we're saying, I am an archaeologist and an ancient historian, but I'm by no means an expert in the Titanic or underwater archaeology or like underwater heritage at all. So if there is someone out there possibly watching this who is more of an expert in that field, please feel free to head into the comments and tell me your thoughts and feelings, tell me how wrong I am, it's absolutely fine. I'd like to just facilitate a discussion here and chuck some general thoughts that I've had out into the ether, out into the void of the internet and see what comes back to me. The Titanic sunk in April of 1912. The Titan submarine ventured down to see the wreckage of it in June 2023 and unfortunately imploded. Just for those who have no idea what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it, there you go. Now, the Titanic is a protected underwater site, and it's protected by many, many laws and agreements. It's protected by UNESCO's Convention of Underwater Cultural Heritage, UNESCO, who protect loads of World Heritage sites, including Edinburgh Old Town, Edinburgh New Town, ones outside of Edinburgh as well, obviously, Stonehenge and all that, like all the big major historical sites have some form of UNESCO protection. Okay, back to the Titanic. It's protected by UNESCO. It's also protected by a US-UK agreement and the law of the sea. So there's multiple parties in play all the time to protect the integrity of the Titanic wreck site. Not just the boat, but also... a ship can carry a boat, but a boat can't carry a ship. To protect the ship and also the wreck site around it where there's artefacts that have, spilled out and whatever. I just have to make sure I get that right because my granddad was in the Navy. I can't be seen to get that wrong. They also make sure it's not overly exploited or heavily commercialised. So there's some sort of control over who and how many people can go. And I will link all the documents down below, by the way, the US-UK agreement, the UNESCO site, and of course the law of the sea. The actual big massive typed document of the law of the sea, if you'd like to read it. The difficulty with the Titanic is it's so deep in the water and it's actively decaying, don't you know? UNESCO suspects that the entire wreck might be gone by 2050 because it's actively composing due to water pressure, for one, the salty nature of the seawater, and little teeny tiny microbes that are slowly eating away at it. So we're losing it, guys. Therefore, we have an actively decaying, historically significant vessel that's so deep in the water that natural sunlight can't reach it. Should we be letting tourists and joy makers and regular little plebs go down to see it? No? Especially given the hazards of diving that deep. That usually, who goes that deep? Actual proper submariners in big submarines and Navy people? And why am I even bothering to talk about this in the first place? Because it's technically classed as underwater archaeology, right? Underwater archaeology being the study of human material remains which have become submerged under a body of water for some reason or other. That quote comes from me, circa 2023, if you want to use that in any papers. So that can be shipwrecks, it can be ports, it can be buildings, it can be temples, it can be entire cities that have somehow become submerged underwater. And underwater tourism of these sites is fine, but I think it should all be taken on a case-by-case basis, in my humble opinion. So broadly speaking, I think we should take into account how deep in the water is the site, the integrity of the site, is it actively decaying? Is there a possibility that visitors could damage it? For example, if they're going down in submarines that they can't really control, are they going to bash into it? Is there any possibility of visitors causing more harm than good? And also this next part kind of plays into both of those previous points. Is like a submarine vessel needed to get that deep into the water? Is it a case of you need the visitors and the tourists to have some sort of experience with diving equipment and stuff, or have experienced diving guides to take them down? Because maybe it's not quite as deep as the Titanic, maybe we're talking scuba level. Or is it like fairly close to the surface of the water, so you can see everything and you maybe just need a wee snorkel? You know, there's plenty of little sites that are underwater that you can visit that aren't very deep like that. And most importantly, is it in the best interest and safety of both the archaeology and the people that are visiting it? Looking at those basic criteria, most sites like that, probably, yeah, you could get away with letting people go down. In the case of the Titanic, big fat no from me. In all honesty, big fat no. But then again, what do I know? Because I have a Jaws 4 level of irrational paranoia fear that the second I touch an open body of water, or even like the deep end of a swimming pool, a great white shark is going to attempt to swallow me whole. Just like Ellen Brody. And obviously that's different for like research visits, right? Like if you're going under the water to actually do archaeology, to actually record the site, to take photos of it, to document it, fire away, my sons, do what you like, because the more documentation we have, if it's an actively decaying site, you've documented it, took your photos, and then just leave it in peace, please. I was speaking to my granddad about this actually, because he is a Royal Navy veteran. That's how they salute. They go that way instead of that way. Royal Navy veteran. Because we were talking about this whole situation and he was telling me about the old warships that have sunk in sea battles and whatnot. And he was the one that actually told me about the law of the sea and how, since the majority of the time when a ship is wrecked and it sinks to the bottom of the sea, human lives are lost. Therefore, those ships are sort of respected as graves and they're left alone as such. That's why there's not many efforts to really bring old ships back up to above sea level. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why you don't do that, but that's also because they are respected as graves and should be left as such. Obviously, some ships have been brought back up in certain situations, but the overarching rule is that you just leave it, right? But given that the Titanic was the biggest loss of life in a shipwreck outside of wartime, that should probably count as a grave and should also be left in peace as such. No? Surely it should be given the same level of respect, even though it is an incredibly famous ship. There's also a degree of sensationalisation around the whole affair. Like, you've probably seen, because I have seen by force, all of the Curse of the Titanic, the curse strikes again, headlines floating around. And I get it. It's drama. It's exciting. It's clickbaity. It's whatever. But it leads to sort of bad research and misinformation when people are like, you know, pushing into this, mysterious, out of our control curse that's, you know, supernatural forces and whatever. That sort of thing happens a lot in archaeology. Don't get me wrong. The most famous examples probably be in the Curse of King Tut's tomb. When, you know, we opened the tomb and everyone died. Oh my god. Yeah, they all died of different circumstances over a very, very long time afterwards. It wasn't anything to do with the tomb at all. Or like ancient aliens, for example. There's another one. Sensationalisation and misinformation at its finest. I get that it makes good telly and it makes good headlines and it gets people interested, but at the cost of the true story. And the simple truth is simple human error and technological malfunction. Now, I get that's not nearly as exciting as a curse, but it's the reality of the situation and lives have been lost. Can we maybe at least wait a little while before we start all this, like, cursey stuff? Maybe? Like, I get being like, Curse of the Titanic, it happened ages ago. But this has just happened, and it's like, bit fresh, no? Because I'm not really sure that the families of the deceased would like to think of their loved ones as cursed by a ship. Or whatever force it was that cursed the Titanic and encased the Titanic. You know what I mean? It's just a bit like, come on. At least give them like a year. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think that sort of covers my thoughts on the matter. Hiya! me again, I just told you a little white lie there because I did forget to mention something. So here it is, editing me, jumping in once again to save the day. If you, the collective you, not just you watching at home, but you in general, everyone, if you want to visit the Titanic that badly, just go to Belfast, best day. Just go to Belfast. They have the whole Titanic Quarter, they have the Titanic Museum, they even have like, I've not been, but I've seen videos of it, it's really cool. They have like a big thing on the floor that's like a big screen that looks like you're flying over the wreck, but you're on dry land and you don't have to risk your life. So it looks quite good actually. But there you go, that's all I want to say. There is ways of seeing it without seeing it, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's it. Bye. Enjoy the rest of the video. It's not much longer, I promise. Yeah, I think that's all I got. To add an archaeological POV, I guess, sort of, well, not necessarily archaeological, but, you know, in the wider scale of underwater archaeology and ocean heritage and all these sort of things of, you need to be careful, not only with the remains that you're looking at, but also the sea cannot be tamed. The ocean is scary. There's scary things down there. And always give your offerings to Poseidon before you venture on the ocean. And although this is, of course, a tragedy that human life has been lost, it's also a big lesson in technological innovation and human hubris. Innovation for innovation's sake is not worth it if human lives are going to be lost. And also the fact that there was an implosion under the water, and I'm assuming the remains of that vessel have to have sunk to the bottom or whatever. Could they have further damaged the Titanic if a chunk of that has fallen and then hit the ship? You know what I mean? Or hit the area around it and that's caused, you know, the water to sort of like, woo, and then has that caused damage? Is that how it works? I've not seen anything in the news about that though, so that's purely speculation. But that's another thing to take into account. If accident occurs, what's happening here, what's being damaged and what's safe? Does that make sense? It's quite late in the day. I think my words are starting to just jumble in my brain a bit, sorry. But essentially, to sort of round off my points, we need to be aware of not just the heritage, but also the risks to human life when it comes to underwater tourism, not just in the case of the Titanic, but across the board. If you're going under the water, you've got to make sure that the site's stable enough and that the people are aware enough and that there's enough safety precautions in place to protect both of them. But thanks for letting me ponder that, I guess. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, for sticking with me through this one. I know it's been a bit more laid back, a bit more mellow than my usual videos, and I'm sorry. It doesn't feel right to be like, tee-hee, oh, jump cut here, insert this funny meme here, you know what I mean? The vibe just isn't right for that today. And I'm by no means speaking on behalf of all archaeologists. Jesus, no. I just wanted to offer up some thoughts that I've been having since hearing about the whole Titan voyage start. And I actually quite hope to facilitate a discussion about this from other archaeologists, from people who don't care about archaeology, from all different viewpoints. Please, if you agree or disagree, that's fine. Pop it in the comments. I would love to actually have a discussion about this in the sort of wider scale of heritage and protection and conservation and things like that. Because I haven't really seen too many people speaking about that. The majority of historical YouTubers or whoever that I've seen speak about the Titanic have just been sort of giving a rundown of the actual events. But I've not seen too many people try and work in a sort of ethical perspective. That's not the right word. I'm making no sense now. I'm tired. But I just want to facilitate a wee discussion. So fire away in the comments if you have anything to add to this. I'd love to hear what you have to say, whether you agree or disagree. Happy to hear all sides of the argument, of course. But yeah, sorry this one's been a bit more low frequency. Not all my videos are like this, I promise. Next week I'll be back to my usual annoying self. So make sure to subscribe if you're not already to not miss out on that. And as always, I'll leave some further reading and sort of bibliographical bits in the description box, because most of these thoughts were just my own little philosophical ponderings when I'm lying awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling going, oh my god. What? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week wherever you are in the world. Remember to drink water. and have a little sweetie today. Have a little sweetie. Just one. One wee treat. And I shall see you all next Tuesday. Bye bye.